Welcome everybody. Welcome to another Quran study today. Today, God willing, we'll be reading from Surah 2 and we'll be starting at verse 49. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Recall that we saved you from Pharaoh's people who inflicted upon you the worst persecution, slaying your sons and sparing your daughters. That was an exacting test from your Lord. Recall that we parted the sea for you, we saved you and drowned Pharaoh's people before your eyes. Yet when we summoned Moses for 40 nights, you worshipped the calf and is absent and turned wicked. So this has a footnote. God willing, we'll read this. For verse 51, the footnote says, this incident reflects the human's idolatrous tendency. Despite the profound miracles, Moses' followers worshiped the calf in his absence. And Moses ended up with only 2 believers. And we can see that's mentioned in Surah 5, the feast, verse 23. As pointed out in the introduction, the humans are rebels whose egos are their gods. So, this is a good lesson for people, for anybody reading this final testament, the Quran, to learn from this. Because we can see where these people, the children of Israel, failed. And they forgot God's blessings upon them. That's another thing. I guess you have to be really wicked and evil to, have a messenger or a prophet in this case come in your midst, M-I-D-S-T, if I'm pronouncing that right, but in your midst and save you. God is the one who's saving you, and then you witness these miracles. And so this would be, God willing, this should be like an eternal memory for you to remember God and thank Him and appreciate Him, and also to use it to help you. Like if you were at risk of being distracted by worldly things, or and we see in their case they ended up worshiping the calf in his absence. So instead of remembering God and all the times that He saved them, and plus the miracles, like these great miracles, they ended up turning wicked and worshiping a calf. And we even see that they were drowned before these people's eyes, like they witnessed. That's something incredible and awesome to witness. So, and God is most merciful, so, because we see the next verse says, still we pardon you thereafter that you may be appreciative. But also just getting back to, how the footnote is just super important, because it's in our nature. We as creatures, we humans, it's in our nature to idolize things, and we can see the proof behind this. In our own lives, sure, all of us were engaged in some type of idol worship at some point in our lives. Before becoming a submitter to God alone. And then also it's evident by, just looking at the world around us and looking at all the people idol worshiping themselves. And this is even more important for us to be on guard and cautious not to idol worship, because when we see someone, obviously if they're not a submitter, but they're going to disregard God's message. But we see on a daily basis people attributing power to other people, or maybe even attributing power to an object, like or, you know, anybody or anything, if you think that has power to help you or harm you. When I say anything, like an object, like if you think a pill or some type of medical device could do anything for you. I mean, even if it does work, it's God's system, it's by God's leave that the interactions of this herb or this substance or whatever frequency or electrical signal in the body, it's God is the one that's controlling the atoms and electrons and protons. That's, you know, and all these other type of exchanges on the cellular level. He's the one doing it. You know, it's not these things that are just doing it themselves. So really, you know, thinking about it like that could help us to not make materials, you know, or, you know, by mistake, you know, attributing power to these things, you know, because it's not just people either. We also have to keep that in mind. But yeah, this is why it's so important. And as we'll read in the next footnote, the importance of killing the ego, because that's what really, if you look at the main block of what's keeping most people from being redeemed, is the ego. And may God help us to kill it, and kill, like dead means dead, you know. And if it tries to creep back up, we ask God to help us and to, you know, take a look within ourselves. Because, I mean, God knows, you know, so it would only benefit us to come wholeheartedly and really ask Him for help with this, because we can't help ourselves. I mean, other people can't help us. Only He can help us, because our life, like eternal life, depends on it. It's super important. So, still we pardon you thereafter, that you may be appreciative. Recall that we gave Moses scripture and the statute book, that you may be guided. So, mashallah, you know, we have the you know, great wisdom in these books. You know, the first commandment, you shall have no other gods beside God. You know, no other idols. You know, so, and in Deuteronomy and these other scriptures, it says God does not change. You know, so what I'm saying, like for people, you know, who are listening or maybe watching this in the future, you should know that, and even in the original, or not the original, but the previous scriptures, which have all been superseded by this final scripture, the Quran, the greatest of all, but the message has always been the same. You know, it's in Mark, Deuteronomy, Matthew, Luke, you know. So, you know, this is what Moses, the wisdom he was given to. Kill your ego. Recall that Moses said to his people, "O my people, you have wronged your souls by worshiping the calf." You must repent to your Creator. You shall kill your egos. This is better for you in the sight of your Creator. He did redeem you. He is the Redeemer, most merciful. So this one has a footnote. It is the ego that led to Satan's fall. It is the ego that caused our exile into this world. And it is the ego that is keeping most of us from redemption to God's kingdom. So, really, I mean, really thinking about it, I know we've probably all read this verse, excuse me, this verse before and its respective footnote. However, you know, really just looking at it, we know Satan's our most ardent enemy, but in the sense of like the ego is also our enemy too. And then the ego, obviously Satan and, or a jinn, you know, for that matter, is going to, you know, try to whisper things to us or try to get us to worship our egos or not work on killing it completely or thinking it's not a big deal when it is a big deal. I mean, this is life or death. And so, you know, and even for myself and everyone in the study and everyone listening and every human being out there, and of course the jinns as well. It's the ego that caused our exile into this world, into this kind of like how the messenger said, the halfway house to hell that we're in, so to speak. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. But it's the ego that's, imagine if you knew, like, you had this amazing puzzle. Maybe this isn't a good example, but just bear with me. This amazing puzzle to solve, and at the end, if you manage to solve it and complete it and do it correctly and rightly, or in the right manner, it would be, the reward and happiness would follow that you've never experienced before. But there's this one obstacle in this puzzle, and imagine you're told what this obstacle is. We would do everything in our power to completely eradicate such an obstacle, whatever. So, this, in this example, it's the ego, so we should treat it the same way. Like if someone told you you're going to get, $100 million or a bunch of rubies or sapphires, after completing the puzzle, which, is nothing really. It's just materials, But like in the sense of a worldly, humanistic understanding, we would be gung-ho, so to speak, on eradicating that obstacle. So this is the one that we have to kill, because we can see how many people, even around the time of the Messenger of the Covenant, even recently, with some of the NASA numerology individuals, but besides that point, just making a joke, maybe it wasn't funny, but we can see, in all seriousness, we can see where people have fallen short, and in pretty much every case, even our shortcomings ourselves, it's probably because of the ego. So this is super important, and it's the first commandment too in the Quran as well. Physical evidence. Recall that you said, "O Moses, we will not believe unless we see God physically. Consequently, the lightning struck you as you looked." So this is the audacity of these, the children of Israel. But we'll read the footnote. It is noteworthy that the word God in this verse is the 19th occurrence, and this is the verse where people demanded physical evidence. SubhanAllah. The Quran's mathematical code, based on the number 19, provides such physical evidence. Note also that Surah 2 plus verse 55 equals 57, which is 19 times 3. MashaAllah, this is what God has given us, And this is really, this is something awesome too. Like how it corresponds to the verse, and we can see that it's an amazing design, and it's everything's been divinely guided in this respect and arranged, and it's a real blessing to continually see these things, and then there are maybe things we might have saw before or we forgot, or maybe new things we might not have seen. These are all continuous benefits and blessings to give us continuous reassurance, and add to our certainty that what we have is from God, and we can prove it, like in a sense, when I say we can prove it, when people may ask, what's your proof? Well, we actually have physical proof. There is such a thing as the religion of truth, and it is worshiping God alone, the most logical, sensible, truth that there is, and we have 19 that confirms it too. when we then revived you after you had died, that you may be appreciative. Subhanallah. So, the lightning struck these people for their audacity, but they were revived afterwards. And God is most merciful, because I'm sure we as humans, if someone talked to us like this, this can really help us appreciate God's mercy more as well. We probably, obviously, we're not the most merciful. None of us are. That belongs to God alone. Not even any of the prophets either. It's only God is the most gracious, most merciful. Like one of the verses said, God has decreed that his mercy is his attribute. It's either his attribute or one of his attributes. So it's something to really be thankful for, because how much we need it. But yeah, being appreciative is so important here too. But so we're all shown, just like the children of Israel, we're all given continuous signs and reminders just on a daily basis. Just moving around freely, having our free will, to roam the earth and seek God's provisions, go to work, just go buy something freely from the store that tastes delicious, or a nice tasty drink, and all types of varieties and stuff. And then we don't have to focus on digesting our food. God does that for us. We don't have to push a button every 5 minutes to beat our heart, because the design could have been that way. Obviously, like, it's one way, to think about how good we have it, because it could have easily been where we would have had some type of biological type of different just system that could have worked perfect, and we wouldn't have known any different. And we would have had to push this button every few minutes to beat, to reset something, or our hearts and our organs. It could have been easily designed like that. And that would have been, like having to remember to do something like that. And if you don't, you'll start feeling really bad or something. But we don't have to do any of that. God does everything. It's all automatic for us. Even our eyesight is automatic. We don't have to, like the messenger of the covenant gave that example. I don't know if he used the word windshield wipers, but he liked the lubricating fluid and stuff. And then the eyelids, they're really high tech, and they lubricate the eyes, they clean them. Imagine if we had to do it every few minutes, we had to go in. If we were just designed this way, we wouldn't have known. But this is a mercy that we don't have to do it. We have to go in, and we have to, it could have been like that. And so, thank God, like, he does all these things. And these are just a few things, like, on us. Imagine if we had to, if the earth, like us astronauts on it, we had to, harness these big earth, type of geographical devices that would send wind for us and stuff. What if we had to do that every day? Or we each had to do a part in order for us. But no, all that's done automatically and sent so freely for us. Mashallah, like some of the, songs, the more I listen to them, and, the more you think about some of this music, what it's actually saying, everything, the hearing, and the eyesight, all is given to you so free, food on the table. Mashallah, yeah, so these are good mercies from God, verse 57, we shaded you with clouds in Sinai and sent down to you manna and quails, eat from the good things we provided for you. Excuse me. They did not hurt us by rebelling. They only hurt their own souls. So, yeah, like these people, we know that they turned wicked after worshiping the calf, but I mean, just these nice things, the manna and quails. I'm not sure what manna is. I don't want to misspeak, but I think when I looked it up before, it was supposedly something like angel food, or I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's like really sounds really delicious and like really high quality food. And we can see how it was sent down. They were shaded with clouds and all these things freely given, but them rebelling didn't hurt God. It didn't hurt the angels either. They only hurt themselves, because realizing that like our everything we have, everything around us, our existence, our 3D. Not to get into like quantum physics or some people talk about the fourth dimension, but just for this practical example, like our 3D existence and this reality is all relying upon God. So that's so naturally, we literally, God is our lifeline, our eternal lifeline, both in this life and the hereafter, which is, when we think about it like that, there's no other alternative, like, there's that we would want, or even if we were to imagine another alternative, it would be like horrible. It would be hell. Because there would be, nobody would be there to provide you anything, But lack of confidence in God, they refused to enter Jerusalem. Recall that we said, enter this town where you will find as many provisions as you like. Just enter the gate humbly and treat the people nicely. We will then forgive your sins and increase the reward for the pious. So, yeah, man. I'll just read the next verse, God willing. But the wicked among them carried out commands other than the commands given to them. Consequently, we sent down upon the transgressors condemnation from the sky due to their wickedness. So, here, God is most merciful, most gracious, just telling them to enter the town humbly, treat the people nicely, and they're going to have all types of nice provisions. They're going to have a place to sleep, relax, do whatever work or, activities or whatever. It's going to be nice, and not only that, they're going to be forgiven, and, they're going to have the reward increase. But, the wicked among them, didn't like this, and maybe because it was their ego, they didn't want to enter the town humbly. Maybe, knowing these type of people, even they're around today, we can see, how they feel about sharing. They're mentioned in the Quran, they're mentioned throughout history. God does not shy away about talking about the children of Israel and about the, it's only to their own detriment. So whatever the case would be, due to their egos or due to them wanting to possess Jerusalem themselves, out of greed and wickedness. They are wicked, due to their wickedness, so they the same thing is gonna happen today, to the transgressors. It's always this, it's always gonna be the same. You reap what you sow, you sow what you reap. More miracles. Recall that Moses sought water for his people. We said, strike the rock with your staff, whereupon 12 springs gushed out therefrom. The members of each tribe knew their own water. Eat and drink from God's provisions, and do not roam the earth corruptingly. So these are more miracles, Moses striking a rock, and then Israel rebels. Recall that you said, O Moses, we can no longer tolerate one kind of food. Call upon your Lord to produce for us such earthly crops as beans, cucumbers, garlic, lentils, and onions. He said, do you wish to substitute that which is inferior for that which is good? Go down to Egypt, where you can find what you ask for. They have incurred condemnation, humiliation, and disgrace, and brought upon themselves wrath from God. This is because they rejected God's revelations and killed the prophets unjustly. This is because they disobeyed and transgressed. Yes, I mean, even, these wicked people, we can see that they've incurred condemnation, so despite the numerous miracles and numerous blessings, they're not going to be eternal appreciative. So, I mean, you're giving them these almost heaven-like provisions, in a sense, like in what we understand, like in the worldly perspective. So, I mean, even if these people were, were to be given numerous things, like in heaven or something, they would turn unappreciative, without a doubt, because if they're going to be unappreciative in this world, they're going to be unappreciative no matter what you give them. And we can see that God is, how much the food that he sent down, the miracles that were shown to them, the invitations and opportunities and blessings, as we read earlier about entering Jerusalem. I mean, there's much more. And, they're just, turned argumentative and unappreciative. And then they have the good question, they're substituting that which is inferior for that which is good. So we can see, their rebellion, did not, they only hurt themselves, their unity of all submitters, verse 62. Surely those who believe, those who are Jewish, the Christians, and the converts, anyone who believes in God, believes in the last day, and leads a righteous life, will receive their recompense from the Lord. They have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. So believing in God, too, and the messenger was very clear on this. Our belief as submitters is not, belief in God is only valid if one knows and believes in all his attributes. And may God help us to get us to this point and perfect us at such a point, namely that God is running everything and God is doing everything. La quwwata illa billah. No one possesses any power except God. So, because, we can see that, a lot of people utter with their mouths, which isn't the truth, from other religions. We might hear it pretty often that they believe in God, but they don't do so without committing idol worship. They believe in God and they believe in Jesus. That's not going to cut it. That's not true belief in God. That's belief while setting up idols beside God, and that's falling into the same original mistake we all committed. So we can see belief in God, as it's also noted in the Quran, is only valid if one knows God's truest qualities, namely that he's doing everything. And this subsequently, would augment like our submission to him alone and make us never object, because once we really believe and like start to see the world like no one's doing anything, we're going to see a situation that previously we might have wanted to object it to, but then it's like, well, no, how can I object to the Lord of the universe? Like, whoa, who am I? Like having a healthy like form of fear, but also like hope and the ultimate security, because God is the best. God is the most just. He's the loving. He's the most kind. He's the compassionate. And so naturally, we're going to rejoice in him being in control. Imagine like people who think like Satan's in control or Satan's their God and stuff, and then they're going to be like, obviously Satan would want to tear these people up. He's our most ardent enemy. He's so evil. And so, these people are not going to be happy. They're not going to have any trust, they're going to be, suffering and stuff. And we can see a lot of people are like that in the world, and it's a real blessing to have this information, and may God help us, because this is so important. I mean, it's the number one, and then number two is believing in the last day. So, we live life like we're being recorded, like the Quran says, in Adam's weight. We can never be too safe, in that sense. And any hint of idol worship, and may God help us see these things in our lives, because obviously if we can't see these, or we don't think we're making the mistakes, and how can we improve? I mean, how can we help ourselves? How can we get better? So this is where, asking God, imploring God to help us with these things, show us these things, show us where we need to improve, that we may be saved, because it might be difficult, come at first in submission, but God, like we're told in the Quran, and as explained by the messenger, God will help us with these things if we implore Him. And, there's a polishing process and refinement that happens, and it's for our own good. The polishing process could be very severe, but at the end you come out, very solid and happy too, so things aren't gonna, it's like the verse, with pain there's gain, and then of course, leading a righteous life. So, we're good to people, we advocate righteousness, and I say we as submitters, this is what we uphold in the Quran, no idol worship, no innovations or any of that, we don't prohibit things, all of these things is a whole culmination of things, and, God will make it easy for us to uphold these things, and this is what we're here to. Why unity is so important too, because we're here to remind each other, am I committing idol worship? Yes, I'm committing idol worship. You're committing, may God, like on the messenger, there's a video, how he was kind of explaining it like that, but it was really awesome, because it's we're all in this together, like in the sense we're all in the test, and we've decided to submit to God and believe God. We know what the truth is, and so it's our job to help each other, and that we may help ourselves, and ask God, of course, only God can help us. They have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. Covenant with Israel. We made a covenant with you as we raised Mount Sinai above you. You shall uphold what we have given you strongly, and remember its contents, that you may be saved. But you turned away thereafter, and if it were not for God's grace towards you and His mercy, you would have been doomed. You have known about those among you who desecrated the Sabbath. We said to them, be you as despicable as apes. So, raising Mount Sinai above, and then having a covenant, I mean, this should be, should have been easy for the children of Israel to uphold. But we can see, mashallah, how merciful God is in His grace. But that's the thing, maybe they didn't appreciate His grace, maybe, maybe they took it for granted, or weren't taking it serious, but, but whatever, obviously we know that they turned away due to their egos and transgressing behaviors, but it's that they may be saved, in the covenant. We know, the commandments that they were given, and it's always been the same consistent message, the same consistent message that's in this book as well. Although, at their time there was maybe, a few different, I think like prohibitions. I hope I'm remembering this right, but like about eating certain animals with divided hooves and then vice versa, not doing so. So, but we can see that those who desecrated the Sabbath, which was the holy day. I think the true Sabbath is Saturday, but not to get into the history or literature, but it's not Sunday. Like I think the Christians or some Christians follow. It should be Saturday, and where you don't work, and you just praise God and meditate on God and thank Him and all that. But we can see that that they've desecrated this. And God willing, I'm remembering this right. If I'm about this, if I'm not, please correct me. We set them up as an example for the generation, as well as subsequent generations, and an enlightenment for the righteous. The heifer. Moses said to his people, God commands you to sacrifice a heifer. They said, are you mocking us? He said, God forbid that I should behave like the ignorant ones. They said, call upon your Lord to show us which one. He says that she is a heifer that is neither too old nor too young, of an intermediate age. Now carry out what you're commanded to do. So they should have just, this is a good example. It's what the surah is named after, and we're going to read the footnote. But it would have been best for them just to say, yes, sir, submit. I mean, that's what it means, submission. Instead of questioning God's commandments, questioning His wisdom, and or just being doubtful too. I mean, maybe you could see it. Maybe they were doubtful, they weren't sure, or they were, at one point, and I think I thought this verse was like maybe they were just unsure and they really wanted to know the right one, but then that's still not acceptable. Like if you get a commandment that sacrifice a heifer, you just grab a heifer and it's real simple, you don't complicate it and or try to almost challenge God in this way. I mean, God be glorified. But you can see how they're making it very hard for themselves. And so, real quick, we'll read the footnote. Although this surah contains important laws and commandments, including the contact prayers, fasting, Hajj pilgrimage, and the laws of marriage, divorce, etc., the name given to the surah is the heifer. This reflects the crucial importance of submission to God and immediate, unwavering obedience to our Creator. Such submission proves our belief in God's omnipotence and absolute authority. See also the Bible's Book of Numbers, chapter 19. Yeah, mashallah. So a complete submission to God, no questions, yes sir. And, it's like if someone asked me to go get 19 oranges from Trader Joe's or the store. I mean, imagine me sitting in the town asking for what type of oranges do you want? Do you want like rough textured ones or colors? And you just, I mean, that would not be good because, you just gave them a simple command and, just going to get, the 19 oranges would be, instead of asking them and they tell you, and then you keep asking them or you keep questioning their wisdom and you're not submitting and stuff. But and we can also see the Bible's Book of Numbers, chapter 19, which most of Numbers is just, if I'm remembering correctly, it's just like lineage type of verses. They say, call upon your Lord to show us her color. He says that she is a yellow heifer, bright and colored, pleases the beholders. And they still haven't submitted, the children of Israel, and they're saying, they said, call upon your Lord to show us which one. The heifers look alike to us, and God willing, we will be guided. So, this can kind of almost seem like, like confusing, because you would think that they're trying to be like extra righteous, or but that's what it would appear. But that's the thing. It's like it's the same. Oh, I'm doing 9 steps will do instead of the 4 steps. Like, oh, I'm being more like, no, like you're not. You're complicating the matter. Satan's trying to complicate your religion for you, just like these people. They're just, it's like just like it was explained in the footnote. They're not unwavering, complete submission. Yes, sir, to God. They're. I mean, we're given examples too, like in the Messenger of the Covenant, how people would try to did this same thing, and I think he referred to this to Sarah too, because there was people in his midst that were not unwavering submitters to God. Because if you're listening and yes sir to the messenger and obeying, you're obeying God. So when you start to question the messenger, or even if you don't understand, like he said himself, that's what it means to submit. When you decide to become a Muslim, or we don't use Muslim, but the submitter. Even if you don't understand something, it could be the age of 40, you just say, this is what God is saying, yes sir, I accept it, even though, and God will help you with the understanding later, God willing. He says that she is a heifer that was never humiliated in plowing the land or watering the crops, free from any blemish. They said, now you have brought the truth. They finally sacrificed her at this lengthy reluctance. So with that being said, if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. And if I made any mistakes, may God forgive me.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother. Good study, MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to, make a comment about the Mena. So I believe it says that, Mena was like some kind of like natural raisin or secretion from certain desert plants, like tasted like wafers made of honey, and it was miraculously given. But I don't think there's something about it being from like food of angels or something. And this, we don't know if angels
Okay,
eat.
mashallah. Yeah, I don't know. That's why I wasn't sure, because I heard it like multiple times. Like, but then it's like we know angels don't need food; they don't eat like us. But yeah, I think it was maybe something from I don't know where I heard that from. Yeah, that makes more sense. Like the. But that does sound pretty delicious.
Anything sounds delicious right
now.
Now.
Maybe we can try to find some manna or something to order some.
Yeah, I think also, it also, these verses, talking about the, them asking for the earthly crops, instead of the food that was given to them. We know that the food that was given to them was a lot better than what they were demanding, and they were just tired of eating the same food. And I think, like, the idea is that, we need to be appreciative of God for the provisions, for the blessings that, we're given. Like, sometimes we may feel like we get fed up of things or get bored of what we are given, but I guess we should remember that, this life is just a test, and instead we should, find ways to appreciate Him, for the things that He has given us, rather than complain about them.
Mashallah.
Are you talking? Can't hear you. No, can't hear you. Yeah, they said we can't hear you, Brother Raphael. No. Uh, maybe you can disconnect your headphones first. Disconnect it? Okay. Yeah, now I think. Yeah, maybe you can just speak from. Well, I am wearing headphones actually, so it probably wouldn't work either. I think what it's always happened to one of us. I think works.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was saying, Brother John, the verses that you're reading, it's really I think you said it too actually, like in short words, but God's mercy towards these people. Like you see these verses that continue, like God forgiving these people, like with the calf and like when the lightning struck them, like so much miracles, like these profound miracles, and then and them like doing something bad or not submitting, and still God showing them mercy, like it's really like amazing, like, and we see these people now, and they still, like you see these people like they're very wicked, and today, but it we could read about their history, and really see really how wicked they are, like it's so bad. Subhanallah.
Yeah, and yeah, good point. I mean, thank God for His mercy, but yeah, these same people think that they're the chosen ones, and we can see their ego and arrogance has led them so far astray, and they're still, they're still doing it the same. They're still worshiping the calf and all that today. I mean, they're not worshiping the calf, but they're worshiping the Moloch. The Kabbalah Jews, which are pretty much it's all the same. They're all doing the same thing. Kind of like you said, they're repeating the same mistakes and due to their wickedness. The Kabbalah is the Jewish magic that they're all.
Yeah, I mean, either way, they're all worshiping Satan because they're not following the laws that God has put in the Quran. And like you talked about their ego, I mean, God has given us a commandment here. I mean, this is talking about the children of Israel, right? They were told to kill their ego because their ego caused them to do this. But it's also a reminder for us, like at the very beginning of the Quran, as we start to read the Quran, like God has put this commandment to actually kill your ego. Now I remember reading some article by someone who was gone astray, from the time of the messenger, and they were saying that ego cannot be killed, and that we kill it and it comes back or something like that, but But I think the thing here is to kill our ego, and when you kill our ego, that then you become a submitter, who can submit to God, and you kill it. Otherwise shouldn't be saying to kill it, should just say like suppress it or something, right? But we're supposed to kill it, eliminate it, get rid of it. Should have no ego when it comes to following God's commandments, and it also explains why people come into submission and they fail to kill their ego, then they go astray. They come up with laws and ideas and personal opinions that they can't let go of. They fall in love with their personal opinions, and we should not be like that. We know, like as you said, how our ego caused us to be here. We were egotistical creatures. Ego is defined by ignorance augmented by arrogance. And it was our ignorance augmented by our arrogance that we thought that all of us would come here on this earth, and then of course we're strong enough and smart enough that we're going to worship God alone and pass this test. Yet most people are going to hell because of it, right? And so, except the very fortunate ones. And so the ego is there, and we all should recognize that. If someone thinks that like, oh, it's for other people, like I don't have ego, I mean, that's wrong, because we all have it, and if we're not even acknowledging it, obviously we're not going to be able to effectively kill it. I mean, we all have our own ego to work on, and we also have our jinn, who's more egotistical most likely than us, leading us astray, and so we have to kind of separate the ego and Satan from what the righteous thought should be, what the righteous part of us should be really thinking, how we should really look at life and our abilities, especially our abilities as a submitter, and our righteousness, like God says, do not exalt yourselves, and don't think of yourself as so pure and pious and righteous and highly when you go about your daily life in the world. Don't look down on people thinking you're better than them, and thinking that you're just gonna make it so easily. We should be concerned about it, and doesn't mean that you should not have confidence in yourself. Of course, you should have confidence, but not in yourself. You should have confidence in God. You should have trust in God, that He's going to help you, rather than thinking that, you're the one who is capable enough of doing anything. Everything is from God. So when we acknowledge that God is running everything and God is doing everything, nothing is from us. When God says it was not you who threw, it was God who threw, right? God is doing everything. So every achievement we have in our lives, or everything that we're going to get in the future, is all going to be just from God, right? So if we truly acknowledge all of these things, then our ego should not be there. Once you come to that certainty, your ego should not exist. You should kill it. It should be killed at that point. Nevertheless, I mean, we're gonna make mistakes here and there, right? But for the most part, the ego has to be killed. You can't have your ego flaring in and out, in your life. You can't submit to God that way, right? Those people are not gonna make it.
Yeah, mashallah. I think it was arrogance augmented by ignorance, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
both, right? Both.
yeah,
So if you say it the other way around, it's still the same thing.
yeah. Arrogance increased by ignorance, but
Yeah,
yeah,
or
I mean,
ignorance.
both.
It's basically two things, right? It's your arrogance and your ignorance.
Hmm. Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of like if you kill a weed, like if you actually kill it with like some weed killer or pesticide, it's not going to come back. I mean, unless
Hmm.
unless you didn't kill it all the way. So that's
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah, but that's funny that you said that, because that was the example that this person gave, was the weed. It's like, but it's not. It's not. It doesn't work. Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, it's funny. How could they give that example? Because like I've done landscaping work before, and I mean, like once you, I mean, if you kill some of these trees and stuff, like in people's yards, I mean, like it doesn't come back. You know, it's not gonna, it's gone. I mean, same with weeds and all that. Like if you actually pull the root, you know, what you're supposed to do, you pull the root, it's not ever gonna come back.
Yeah, it's only gonna come back when you just cut it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, may God help us. You know.
But that shows like how Satan will always try to promote his message, you know. So it's like kind of okaying it, like it's okay if you have ego, just kill it, you know what I mean, and just sort of kill it, you know.
Yeah, the messenger was very clear. He said dead means, or either said kill means kill, or like somehow it was really well put. Like he said dead means dead. Like it's you know, because even if you think about it, like if we want to be admitted back into where we came from and be near God and be happy, you know, there's not going to be any room for ego, because really that's where we all made the mistake, and of course the animals and stuff were more intelligent. I mean, mashallah, they have it very easy. I'm just looking at some birds outside. It's like the biggest worry of the day is like where they're gonna go get their food. You know, but
but they're not even worried about that as we think they are.
Right. God's providing. He's the one who feeds them. You know? Yeah, mashallah.
I mean, we're the ones who actually worry about these things.
Yeah.
So, you know, also, like it talks about the lack of confidence in God in verse 58, right? And it shows to us like how important it is for us to have that confidence in God. I mean, especially looking at these people, for example, right? I mean, these people were not given the information and the miracle the way we have been given. Like, you know, God says we did not even give them 1/10 of the miracle we have given to this generation, but how terrible was my retribution after the warnings. And so, like, you can see, like, they weren't even given 1/10 of what we have, and yet here he says that their lack of confidence in God had serious consequences, right? They were roaming for 40 years after they failed to enter Jerusalem, right? Aimlessly, it says, right? And when how we can look at it is, you know, if we're kind of faced with a situation where we're afraid when we don't have confidence in God that, you know, that we can, you know, overcome certain challenge or a certain dangerous situation that we may be in, you know, like in this case, they just had to go into Jerusalem, and that was all the test there was, just enter it. If you just enter it, you're going to prevail. Just trust in God, you know, and they didn't, right? And this caused, you know, them to have these consequences for like 40 years, which is a long time, 4 decades, right? That's a long time for just one thing that they did in one day, probably, or 2 days. I don't know how long that was, right? But they didn't enter as they were commanded, and it had these grievous consequences. So this teaches us how it's important, first of all, to not have not being overconfident in yourself, but also to have full confidence and full faith in God, you know, not despairing of God's mercy, thinking that God will not help me, you know. I mean, and I think about it, you know, like how do people think that, you know, God will not help? Like, how do they have lack of faith in God and lack of confidence in God? I mean, they don't say that God cannot help, right? But they say that, I think the way Satan will come at people would probably be around like, no, God is not going to help you specifically for whatever reason, right? Oh, maybe you're not a good submitter or whatever. But we have to realize that we are commanded to have confidence in God. So if even if you think that you're not such a great submitter, you cannot forget that God is the most merciful, most kind, most forgiving. He overlooks our sins. So you should still have confidence in God. If you just have confidence in God, I mean, that alone in itself is a righteous thing to do, right? So when you're not having the confidence, you're actually sinning and disobeying God, right? And definitely then help is not going to come to you. But if you're being confident in God and being hopeful and being optimistic that, God will help me, inshallah, like things are going to turn out good, then God will come. And God obviously never breaks his promise. He's the most faithful, more faithful than the best friend that we may think we have in this world. He's more faithful than any creatures on earth, right? He never breaks his promise, and so we have to have our confidence in God and in life in general. I think it's so important to remember that always. If things don't turn out at the end, the way we anticipated, we have to understand that there's a good reason for everything. Maybe that was not good for me. God knows, there's a good reason for everything. But we should always have confidence in God no matter what. Yeah, I mean, these verses there is so much in these verses, right? I mean, we could talk about all of these. There's so much to talk about here. Um, but I guess another comment I want to make about the unity of submitters. I think this is also probably one of the most abused verses I have seen among submitters, or so-called submitters, because it's talking about the righteous Jews, Christians, and Muslims who worship God alone and believe in God, the way we should believe in God, right? So, uh, I mean, it's talking about the minimum requirements of submission. People who believe in God, they believe in the last day and lead a righteous life. They don't have to be Jewish or Christians specifically, or any religion. It could be anybody, right? From the time of Adam to the end of the world, who believes in God, believes in the last day, and leads a righteous life. These are the minimum requirements. Now, these are the minimum requirements, right? These are not all the requirements, right? So people look at it and say, okay, and they really have a very skewed and really watered down version of it in their minds, where they think, okay, yeah, if someone says I believe in God, and they're believing that they say that spirit after exists, and they're good people, that they think that they're submitters, but that's not what we see here. First of all, these are the minimum requirements, right? And then the thing is that the requirements can vary. For example, if you're born at a time where the messenger of covenant has come, right? Just an example, right? You cannot say, or the Quran has been revealed, right? And you say, no, I'm not going to believe in this book. I'm a Christian. Let's say I'm going to believe up until the Bible, and I'll lead a righteous life. Okay, I won't believe Jesus is God, let's say, but I won't follow the Quran. That person is a disbeliever. Same way a Muslim who says that, okay, I'm not going to believe, or a Christian, or anybody who says, I'm not going to believe the messenger of the covenant was sent by God, they're actually rejectors at that point. So even though they fulfilled these minimal commandments, they failed the bigger test, and they became disbelievers in God's revelations. Right? A true submitter. The definition of a true submitter is that, we also know that they will not find anything objectionable in the Quran. If they see the truth, they will accept it. God says they fall down on their chins weeping, right? But if they were not coming at a time where these things were even present, then they had those minimum requirements. Like, for example, someone coming at the time of Noah when they didn't have these things. So of course they didn't need to believe in the messenger of the covenant or the Quran because it wasn't even there, right? But now that these things are there, those are all the things that they must believe in, right? We have to believe, we have to accept all of God's revelations and follow all the commandments, But some people will look at these things and take that out of context and think that they can do whatever they want as long as they fulfill this version that they think that it is, and just go with their lives the way they want, and they think they'll be fine. Or look at other people and think that they're submitters because they see them somehow observing those commandments. Like being a submitter, a real submitter. I mean, obviously, if it was that easy, most people will not be going to hell, right? Even we see people among submission, many people are not going to make it because they're not actually submitting. They're doing so many things wrong and idolizing things here and there, or people, thinking that they're on the right path.
Yeah, mashallah. I think this is a mistake that anybody can fall into a trap of shaitan, so we have to be careful and always remind ourselves, remind each other not to have any ego, and always remember Allah, God, all the time.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you had stated, and said, they're a Jewish or a Christian that may tell, like you had said, like may say, "Oh, I believe in God and the last day, and I'm doing righteous things." But even if they don't worship Jesus, but if they don't believe in God's messenger, then they're really not believers. Because if they really believed and trusted in God, they're gonna, and it really, I think it comes back to killing the ego too. Like in my case, we don't, like the messengers, we don't give a, he said we don't give a darn what people think or what we care, because in like Audio 4, the introduction to Blue Quran, and this was like really impactful and like home hitting for me because I had gone through this. But like you get to the point where it's like you can keep your ego and go to hell, or like realize you can end up in hell, like if you don't kill it, or you can get rid of it and proclaim, for the people, for your people you grew up around, and we don't care what they think or what they say about us, because it's like he said, there's a lot of Christians that compromise their convictions, or that they would, potentially like be believers. But he said like something like, quote, like he's quoting them, what a lot of them, these people would say. He's like, well, how am I going to go and face my friends and family? When you say, no, I don't worship Jesus, I worship God alone, I believe in the Quran, how will I face, and it was very, subhanAllah, and he wasn't even, or wasn't raised Christian, but I mean, alhamdulillah, it just shows you his guidance, because he knew exactly what goes on in these people's head, and really, and he tied it back all to ego, so yeah, it's very important. I think that's a good point that you made about, even like fellow submitters or other people that allow these people I mean, as you've mentioned in the past, some of these Jewish who aren't even really believers, they're actually trying to convert people away from submission. This is not unity. This is actually division, and yet they're been duped and hypnotized into thinking that it's unity. Whether it's for numbers or of course, acquiescing to people's wishes and trying to be a people pleaser, and no, you have to stand true to your convictions. No, we don't care if this 1,000 people leave or 500. If you're in here promoting idol worship, or you're an idol worshiping Muslim, and just arguing. I mean, we've been given examples of the Messenger of the Covenant that he told. I listened to it the other day. He told Eric to go back to Sweden or Switzerland. So may God help these people, I guess, to see this. But yeah, good points about that, because that is important to mention. Yeah, it's just like we have in the Quran too. There was believers among the Christians and Jews, and then until the Revelations, and I think it was referring to this scripture, the Quran. It wasn't until the guidance was manifested and shown to them that they ended up rejecting it out of jealousy, and then there's other verses where they rejected it out of sheer resentment. So they have to, someone. Unless someone's just living very remotely, and they haven't ever heard of the Quran or the Messenger or something. But I mean, God willing, they'd be introduced to it. But they would get more credit too, because it's a test in of itself, and if they do good and pass it. But yes, that would absolutely right. It constitute that they do believe in God.
Yeah, and then we read the footnote for 267, right?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Yeah, mashallah. And I mean, this is very significant. That this is the longest chapter in the Quran that shows their reluctance to observe God's commandments and laws, and when they don't want to observe the commandments, they try to ask questions, making it complicated, but the idea is obviously, that, like it says, the crucial importance of unwavering obedience to God, unhesitatingly, the believers obey God and His Messenger, right? And so then there are people that will eventually, sometimes will eventually accept certain things, and that's a bad sign. If you find people that you tell them about a certain subject, right, that God says, let's say could be anything, right, to the Quran, and it takes them a long time to debate and debate and debate. Eventually they come to the understanding that that this is the truth. Okay, they came to that understanding 2 years later, 2-3 years later. There have been situations like that I've seen in the past, and then something else comes up, and then again they struggle and struggle and struggle, and fight it. Eventually they do it, or accept it. That may seem like a good thing. Well, it is, at least, that they did accept, right? But it shows people's reluctance to obey God and His Messenger, to people's hesitation to accept, something. They'll argue and argue and argue. Eventually, a few years later, they'll accept something. I've seen that, especially with one particular group. I always felt like just sharing. Like, don't mean to brag about myself or anything, but I always felt like they were 2 3 years behind of anything that came up from the Quran, like something that I felt is in the Quran clearly for us to understand, and I'd say it, and people would oppose me for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then eventually accept it, when it suits them, only when it suits them. And then the same thing just kept happening over the years until the circumcision part issue, got raised again, and then obviously, they were always against it anyways, but it became obvious that these people were not on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that these people hadn't killed their egos, because that's, I mean, what it says in the footnote, crucial importance of submission. So if these people were wise, they would have, listened to what you were saying, and then just looked at it, and like, instead of opposing it, because I mean, we can see where it doesn't do anybody any good to argue. Just accept it, and then let it marinate and stuff, and then it grows. I mean, that's
So let it marinate.
yeah, like let it marinate. If that's a good yeah, like just grow.
Food analogies. Food analogies.
Yeah.
Mashallah. Yeah. Yeah, they just made me forget what I was gonna say. Started thinking about the things we can marinate.
Yeah, I used that term the other day with, I think, ChatGPT, and then I guess I was like, it's like been more of a, and I used it like a few weeks ago, so I'm like, I don't know, maybe looking for reasons to use it.
Mashallah.
Yeah, I mean, like, even seeing this myself, like, instead of just, if you don't understand the contact prayers or why, or this, it'd be better, like, for this individual that I knew and was really close to, and, but I mean, I don't want to be anywhere near this person on the day of judgment, which is why, we have to run from our lives from these people. But yeah, I mean, if that's a, it's like unwavering submission, and that shows, because it was this person's ego that was like preventing them initially to just accept it, and even if they didn't understand its importance or whatever. I mean, that's what submission is, and then after you gain belief about it, and which God willing would come rather quickly. But instead, some people just decide to oppose it, and it would be better, safer, just to, because it's kind of like, it's like this something I was taught from, or just heard like from other, a long time ago. But it's like the saying, "Self can't see self." So when I think about that, like, when that stuck with me years ago, it's like, okay, what if somebody's telling you information that maybe you can't see, and then, I mean, even if you try to tell people this, you're like, look, there's a miracle, there's a Quran, just, hear me, like, I've tried to debate even with that logic with people, but, I'll get responses like, oh, I'm not that good at math, LOL. Like, just looking for excuses not to just running away from the message. But yeah, I mean, even applying this for myself, it's because I mean, if we think about it, where we were before submission, and like how Satan's always after us, there's only upside, to this. So yeah, there's a lot of good verses. Yeah, maybe we could marinate some manna or something, if that's possible.
Quails, you mean?
Quails, yeah. Yeah, quails are really good food. I'm reading about like the really good meats.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that could be something for the Night of Destiny, huh?
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, get some quail.
Yeah.
Maybe back on the east side or something, they would have a place, and
Hmm.
yeah, because they don't have too much out, like for that variety out here.
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, makes sense.
So, so I had a question.
Hmm.
Moses was left with two believers. That's as we see in the footnote. It was also mentioned, and so I mean, I guess that would include his brother Aaron for sure, and then maybe, I mean, not to like speculate on who this was, not that it maybe matters, but it's just, what do y'all think about that? Like, so I mean, is that's pretty much like out of all the thousands of people he probably had with him, they all disbelieved, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
there was
but he
few
was.
people, right? It was his brother. There was his wife also. I'm assuming.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
Uh, yeah, and what about his mother? I don't know if his mother was alive or not. But I mean, nevertheless, these other people, all these people, made the mistake. Some of them repented, I guess.
yeah. Hmm.
Right. Because these are the people. Everybody except those two people worship the calf in his absence.
Right.
Yeah, and it refers to 523. Right.
Yeah, it was a
If
lot
we
of
go
people
to
too. I think.
mhm, go to five. It says, two men who were reverent and blessed by God said, just enter the gate. If you just enter it, you will surely prevail. You must trust in God if you are believers. And then it says, despite all the miracles they saw, they said, "O Moses, we will never enter it so long as they are in it. Therefore, go you and your Lord and fight. We're sitting right here." And he said, "My Lord, people, so allow us to part company with wicked people." So yeah, one was his brother, and he says, "I can only control myself and my brother, so allow us to part company with the wicked people." And hence, it says it's forbidden for them for 40 years, during which they will roam the earth aimlessly. Do not grieve over such wicked people.
Yeah, they must have been really bad. After all the signs
Hmm.
that they saw.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can imagine, like, if something like that happened today, and so submitters were asked to do something like and we they were really bad, but then you can see that when you actually study it closely, like, it's the same for anybody. God has given their example to show us how these people how people behave with the message, the history for us to learn from. But they were not like special people. At first, like, it seems like, oh, they were very bad people, but like, it's not like they were very different from anybody else. I mean, this is how humans are in general. This is typically how these humans respond in these circumstances, these people were no different. I mean, they were wicked people in history, right? Because they were given stuff and they responded in a bad way. But I think if other people were given similar things, they would probably also respond in a similar fashion, right?
Right.
It just shows the humans. I mean, how human and jinn, these things, these blessings from God. Of course, all these were people who claimed to follow Moses, who claimed to be submitters with Moses, right? But then God says all of these people were wicked people. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these people, a lot of these people were people who seemingly, believed when Moses, threw the staff, right? They said, "We are submitters," and they even said to Moses, like, "Oh, you can cut our hands and feet alternate size. So what? Like, we're ultimately going to return to God, or we can only rule in this lowly life." They were saying in front of Pharaoh, right? So, yeah, I mean, and then they end up being this way. So.
Yes, subhanallah. Yeah, brother, like you said, um, it's the same thing like with people now that know about the miracle and they see fault on it. Like people that do that, like it's just like you said, is no difference than the people the children of Israel. Like if anything you could say it's even worse because like you said earlier, like they didn't even get um, um, like um, like the miracle of 19 is more than what was shown to them, because we have all the miracles confirmed by the mathematical miracle. So even like this is even you could see it like if somebody like finds fault, with the messengership of the messenger of the covenant, or finds fault with anything, regarding the message, you could say that they're even in a worse position. It's more bad actually. Like now that I was given thought of what you were saying, because the in a sense we are given more than what they were given. Other miracles are mathematically composed. The message is complete. So it's a huge responsibility.
Are there any comments maybe that we can talk about, or any off-topic questions from anyone?
I do, brother.
No, brother.
So you've mentioned this just now too, a little bit, but Surah 17, verse 107, it says, "Proclaim, believe in it, or do not believe in it. Those who possess knowledge from the previous scriptures, when it is recited to them, they fall down to their chins, prostrating." Like, what is the like? Why they didn't just prostrate? Like, why does it say chins? We don't have like really no information on that.
Oh, it doesn't mean literally.
It still means prostrating, right?
Yeah.
It's like the same.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah, I mean, if it was literal, they'll probably break their jaws or something. Yeah, inshallah. Also, I wanted to just remind everybody, anybody who is watching as well, that mashallah, the submitters, we have the new album out also today, and it's out on Apple Music, and God willing, it should be out it's also out on YouTube, and God willing, it should be out on Spotify and stuff soon. So if you guys want to listen to it, please do download it. There's some tracks for also maybe help you with the commemoration on the Night of Destiny if you want. So just wanted to share that information with everyone. If there are no other comments or questions from anyone, God willing, we can conclude our study. By the way, the name of the album is When the Sun Is Rolled, right? That's the name of the title of the album. If there are no other comments or questions from anyone, God willing, we can conclude our study. Thank you, Brother John, for leading the study. God willing, our next English Quran study actually will not be happening this Tuesday because of the Night of Destiny. But our next English study, then, God willing, will be on Saturday next week at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless. Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum,
alaikum.
everybody.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.